this is Tamara Fleming, and I'm the author of Upswing, 80 Mindful Practices to Shift Your Life from Blues to Bliss. Today I want to talk about the journey from bliss into the dark night of the soul and back out to bliss again. I think you'll find some really interesting nuggets here, so stay tuned. All right, so let me start with this. The story of going into bliss. How did I get into a state of bliss for 3 weeks that I really literally had no words for? Okay, I'd been doing a lot of personal work on myself to strip away the past and to heal a lot of my previous wounds. And I had an opportunity to go down to San Francisco, and I was rooming with a couple of women. One of the women was having a challenge, and the other woman was helping her out. And I was able to just sit and witness these two women going through their experience and send love. So in some situations you might think, oh yeah, well, you'd sit there and you'd listen and you'd have judgments and you'd be making up what you want to say about that and how you would coach this person or help that person, blah, blah, blah. And instead, I just witnessed, and I got into my heart in a state of love, and that is literally the beginning of how I started to feel it in my body, was being in love and witnessing, knowing that everything was perfect and everything was going to be fine. Well, then what happened is I threw myself out of that state and got in a line at a restaurant, and I got into a conflict with a woman because she was being really rude. And I don't like rude people. So I got into a conflict and I said some things that I really didn't want to say. And I did. And so I felt really bad about that. And I was playing that over in my head like, oh my God, how could you go from this state of bliss, state of in your heart to this conflict? How could you do that? So as the universe is so eloquent, it put this woman and I in this hallway at the same time where we really literally had to face each other. So I walked right up to her and I said, I am so sorry about that. Please accept my apology. It was wrong of me to say what I said, and I just took it right back. And she accepted my apology, and we moved on. And I went right back at that point into my heart. So as you can see, I'm practicing as a human being what I can do in my heart to be able to put myself into a state of bliss. So let me talk about this too. A state of bliss is knowing that everything is connected, and that so my interaction with her, even though it was conflict, that I was connected to her, and so it hurt. I had come out of this blissful state into a state of conflict. It was really great to see the conflict because that's how we learn, and so I could very quickly course correct and go back into the state of love. So the state that we're talking about in bliss is the state of being. It's the state of just being. There is no doing. It's being in the now, and it's being in the heart. And when you're in the heart and you're looking out through your eyes and you're looking out with love and compassion, then what starts to happen is your heart starts to open. Judgment fades away and everything becomes literally perfect. Okay? Now hold that thought. The feeling that I want to share with you is that going into a state of bliss is literally like falling in love. So if you think about it, you're falling into love. Bliss is falling into love. And when you're in that place, there are no words, first of all. We don't have a language for this in our experience yet. The word bliss is a little cheapened even. It's a place where you are connected to absolutely everything. And there are no words, and you don't really know what to say to anyone else other than the words that kept coming out of my mouth when I fell into bliss was, everyone needs to know this. Everyone needs to know this. And that's all I could say. So I then met with some other friends, and it was the same experience. I was looking out through my eyes, and I was being love, and I was just being in that state, and it just kept widening my heart, widening my heart, widening my heart. And it kind of felt like I popped into a state of bliss, like I was there and I wasn't going to leave it. It didn't feel evasive. It felt very strong. And so that place is a frequency. It is a place that when you are in your heart long enough with consistency that you create a frequency that brings you into the resonance of really literally all that is. Okay, I can't explain this. All I can tell you is that I was there and that it's available to all of us, every single being, every single person on the planet. So out of that experience, I'm just going to fast forward here because I have another video coming tomorrow to talk more about this, about how to get into bliss. But the next thing I want to talk about is the dark night of the soul. So if there are things in your world, in your life, that really need to be stripped away so that you can return to a state of bliss, that which is your natural birthright, your natural way of being, then you're going to go through experiences. Now, I thought I had done a lot of work, and I know a lot of people who do personal work say, yeah, I've done a lot of work. Every time I hear those words, my head starts to spin because I'm like, there's always more. But I got thrown literally into a deep night of the soul experience. For 3 years, I lost the vision in one of my eyes. My health went to crap. And my mind melted down. My spiritual rudders flew off. I literally lost myself. And if you've read about the dark night of the soul, you know that that's exactly what can happen, that you melt down. You completely become, you deconstruct so that you can reconstruct in a lighter and more meaningful way. So I'll leave that there, but the purpose of the dark night is to clear out what is not bliss, so to clear away what is not bliss. Now, this is a human journey. Nothing is perfect, but this is the journey that we're talking about if you want to go to higher and higher levels of consciousness. All right, so the surrendering part was the part where I started to make the turn, letting go, surrendering over, that I was no longer in control of how this really worked, and I had control of myself, and I had control of my actions and my thoughts. So I got a hold of those. And so as I have continued to come out of the dark night of the soul, returning toward a state of bliss, studying bliss, really looking into bliss, and finding myself in communion with it, there are a few things that I want to share. First of all, it's deep compassion for yourself. So if you are somebody who criticizes yourself and judges yourself, then heading toward a state of bliss is really going to get you into a new way of being. But it first requires compassion for the self. And I have a friend, her name is Brenda Reese. She's a coach, and she is a forgiveness coach. And if any of you are looking to have forgiveness work done, she's a beautiful person to work with, and she's in the Seattle area. So I just want to shout out to Brenda. And also, what I mentioned yesterday is taking 100% responsibility, working to become whole, become into integrity with yourself, to become whole. That's always a moving target, but it's something to think about and work towards. Working to come into a greater state of peace. And if you watch my video, Be Love to Find Peace, you'll see that we're talking about the same kind of energy and the same kind of way of being. And then the other piece of it is that after the dark night of the soul, you've gained a bucket of wisdom that is pretty rock solid, but it takes a while to integrate it. It takes a while to bring it into your way of being, to remember that, oh yeah, that piece and that piece and that piece, and to integrate yourself. So there's an integration period that you're going through. And then it's returning to that state of love and that state of being. So bliss to the dark night to bliss. You can have bliss anytime. Bliss is not conditional on happiness, by the way. Happiness is, if you read the book, The Bliss Experience by Sean Morscherer, you would read that happiness is a sensory experience. So it's based on the senses. Bliss is not, as he states in the book, it's not based on the senses, and it is not. It's based on a whole body, cellular frequency experience that your heart happens to be the doorway to. It's part of the way that your body knows that you're going into a state of bliss. So if you've ever had a child, you've been in bliss. If you've ever had loved someone, what you believe is unconditionally, you've been in a state of bliss. If there have been probably many times you've been in a state of bliss and maybe not totally called it that. But when you go into the total state of bliss and you can hold the frequency there and you can hold the reality of that, what you now have done is put yourself into the fabric of the universe. With the universe, you are one with everything. So I just want to say that. Another long video, but this is juicy stuff, and I don't want to cheat you or me from explaining how this works. So the next video tomorrow is more about bliss, and I'm going to tell you some things that are pretty interesting about it to see if they work for you to get yourself into a more repeatable state of bliss, if that's what you want. All right, that's my video for today. Bye for now. Join me at upswing.com, upswingbook.com if you're not on my list, because like I said before, there is a lot of stuff coming, especially in the fall, and I don't want you to miss it. So upswingbook.com. Bye for now.